I can tell you that I'm not happy, but I'm here.
Mm.
You
I'm
know?
not happy, but I'm here.
Yeah.
I love that. I'm stealing that
Yeah.
because
I'm
that
not
is
happy with it.
beautiful.
I wasn't happy with what was going on, and we're not happy with,
Yeah.
with not know at one point not knowing what he was going through.
Yep.
I'm not happy to, that, suddenly that, everything that, just I just had to jump in. But guess what? I did it because I'm here. I'm your wife. I'm her. I'm it for you, I hope. you know?
Before we jump into this episode, I want to invite you to join the What the F community to hear even more conversations that will make you laugh, cry, and feel more connected. All I'm asking you to do is click on that subscribe button that's right on your screen. I love your support, and it is so inspiring and amazing to see all of your comments. Thank you so much for subscribing. It means the world. Here we go. Hey guys, welcome to What the F. I'm so excited about today's episode with Charles and Dian Ellison, here to talk about epilepsy and marriage. Before we get started, I really want to thank SK Life Science and Neurelis for making conversations that are as important as this possible. Thank you so much. And here we go. Hi, Charles. Hi, Diane.
Hey, how you
Goodness.
doing,
So
lady?
happy to
Thank
be here.
Oh,
Thank
thank you.
you.
I thank you so
Talking.
much for being here. Like it's just it's so appreciated by me and I know by the community as well. Before we dive in, I would like to do give the audience a little bit of context about who you guys are.
Mhm.
Um, which, as I've mentioned, Charles, we've got like 14 note cards to talk about who you are.
Right.
Um,
I'm pretty busy.
but pardon?
I'm pretty busy.
I believe it. That's the thing I
Yes.
need to ask you. Like, how do you do this? So Charles is an award-winning thought leader, political strategist, commentator, journalist, and advocacy expert. You may have seen or heard him on CSNBC, Word Radio, or as a weekly guest on Al Sharpton's radio show, Keeping It Real. He's a lead consultant in the Council of State Governments Eastern Region Council on Committees of Color. He is a 2023 Emerson Collective Fellow, and this is just coming to wraps right now. Congratulations. Created a plan called Green Living Plan, which centers on Black voices and decision making on climate crisis. He is also the owner of BE Strategy, which is a boutique public relations firm. And Charles is a person living with epilepsy. Diane, thank you so much for being here too. Who is his wife, who is the co-principal, senior strategist of BE Strategy. And when I asked you guys to describe BE Strategy, and Charles was like, it's a boutique firm. Diane was like, really? Is that all? Because I think we I think we do a lot. Uh, so thank you so much for being here. I really appreciate it. And I would just love to just get started and, talk about how epilepsy entered, both of your lives.
Mhm. Well, first, thank you for having us, Landis. You want to start? You want to?
It's been a journey, right?
Mhm.
So it started actually in 2022, at the end of 2022, with a big major seizure that happened while I was in bed. Like we were both in
Mm,
bed. There was a lot of convulsions that took place, and it was rather violent. There was some blood that was involved in that as well. I feel really sorry for the experience that both Diane and also our youngest daughter went through, because the youngest daughter like rushed into the room as everything because she was hearing
mhm.
the commotion. So they had to call paramedics, everything for that particular seizure, that big event seizure. We didn't know what was going on, obviously, because this is the first time that something like this had ever happened to me. I've been healthy all throughout my life,
Mhm.
never had, the only thing that I've ever had that was bad was, just sort of the common cold, right? Maybe like the
Yeah,
flu.
the man cold.
Right, right. The man cold. Yeah, I get the man cold every now and then. So I've always, we always are big on staying healthy and sticking with a healthy diet, et cetera. So this was really eventful. I was transported when the paramedics, it was very traumatic too for the neighborhood, because that's something, we just don't normally see. Paramedic driving up, and they took us to the hospital that we were, we have a very nice middle class, upper middle class community, very capable. But the hospital that they zone us to is not very equipped to handle these sorts of events. And so I was taken to that hospital, spent the night there, went through some violent convulsions. I
Oh
didn't know
my
what was
God.
going on. I actually had blacked out. And, all of this is actually what Diane is telling me, and also what my daughter is telling me. Blacked out, woke up, I'm in the hospital, find out what's going on. But they just informed us that, hey, this is just a one-off. This is what a lot of
Okay.
adults deal with. They get one seizure in their life, it passes on, nothing to worry about. They didn't do any really big, deep, in-depth diagnosis to find out, hey, this could be something bigger. This is something
Mm-hmm.
we really need to investigate. This could
Mm-hmm.
be perhaps epilepsy. None of that conversation took place, and I was released that morning, and that was it.
Wow. And you were released. Do you think this was a result of being zoned to that particular hospital? Or do you think it's just luck of the draw? Because I have heard this story before where someone has a convulsive seizure, rather violent, things like that. And then someone tells them, like, actually, one of my guests, like the doctor was like, you need to do more yoga. Like, you're fine. And she was like in her 30s, you know?
Right.
And so do you and you don't have to answer this question if you feel like it's too pressing, but sometimes I feel like it's a reflection of where you are.
Well, I think that his vitals were so on point, right?
Right.
Mm,
So he got to the hospital and they did some initial testing
mhm.
and he was fine. Everything seems fine. They could not locate anything, but they should have taken a deeper dive into what
Yes.
exactly is happening.
Yes.
And that was the problem. The problem
Mhm.
was it's like, okay, blood tests, certain types of
Mhm.
tests.
Sure.
Routine,
Yeah,
but
an
not
EEG,
there.
something to, just some or monitoring, maybe even just day
Yeah.
for monitoring. Um,
They did a
it's
CAT scan and they couldn't,
okay.
and it did not show up on the CAT scan.
Right.
Nothing
Okay.
showed up. Like I said, he was fine. He was like, he looked fine,
Mhm.
but there was something there. He wasn't fine, you know.
Mhm.
And that led to, and in fact, they had called a bit late. Diane was, and we'll get into this a little bit later about how relationships, marriages like ours manage this type of condition.
Mhm.
Diane's a fantastic advocate. She's been a fantastic advocate through this journey, through this experience. But she had been pressing and pressing them. Hey, we need to get an EEG. When they called back, they called me. So, and when they called me,
Mhm.
I had already kind of moved on. Was very busy. I had a daily radio show, busy with my public affairs firm, et cetera. So I missed the call, one on that account. And then two, I had bought into the narrative that, this is
Mhm.
just a one-off. It wasn't
Well,
a,
well,
it wasn't,
absolutely, because why wouldn't you wanna buy into that
Yeah.
narrative?
Yeah.
I
right.
would be like, "Okay, that's what they say." I have listened to doctors' advice that I know is wrong, but
Mhm.
I'm like, "It's the answer I want." And, it wasn't necessarily the best doctor, and I was like, "But that's what I wanna hear." So, I get it as a patient,
Mhm.
sometimes we do.
And then
That's why we all need Diane in our
that's
lives.
why we need Diane, right, right. She stayed on it, and she
Yeah.
knew something was wrong, and her instinct was telling her, you know what, we need to really follow up on this. We should have stuck with that instinct because several months later, we had another big event. And this happened, and
About 4 months later.
4 months later,
Mhm.
an absence seizure happened
Mhm.
while I was on air broadcasting.
4 back to back.
Four, four, four of those seizures back to back,
Oh,
which
wow.
led to ultimately it culminated into a fifth very violent one by the time we got to the hospital. Now that one happened on air. I had guests. The guests noticed something was wrong. Station management, they're watching this also. They're hearing it. People are hearing it because it's a
Mhm.
big radio station in Philadelphia, but they also live stream it nationally. So people can hear it, see it. Everything's audibly and visibly wrong. That people are starting to talk about it. Station management called Diane, and I'm in my room. Doors closed because it's like a studio room.
Sure.
She's like, I don't know what's, and she rushes in there. But our daughter, who's kind of also hears something's wrong, and rushes in. And Diane gets me to the somehow, manage. Well, this time Diane makes a call because the station management's like, hey, listen, you need us to call 911. She said, no, don't, because the last
Mhm.
time
You are
they
good.
sent us to the hospital we were zoned to. I don't want that happening again. She called a
Mhm.
friend. who is in the healthcare profession and asked her, "Hey, do you know the best hospital in this region?" You know, we're in the DC region who
Mhm.
handles these types of events well and effectively. And so they told us, and we went. Well, Diane, some managed to get me in the car and get us to that hospital.
Drove 23 miles in rush hour traffic to get
Right,
him
Oh,
there.
wow.
right. And we
Wow.
And right before the
she'll
last,
tell it because she remembers. Yeah.
Yeah.
right before the last seizure happened, um, he had experienced from the first seizure, he had experienced 3 additional ones, so a total of 4.
Mhm.
Got to the hospital and I just ran in and said in a calm manner, "Listen, my husband is having a seizure. If you don't come right now, he's not going to make it."
Mm.
And the guard looked at me like, and just they took action. But by the
Wow.
time they got him out of the car, that's when the big one came.
Wow.
At that point, his kidney, his liver, his spleen, everything was shutting down.
Oh my goodness.
And then they got him and gave him the first seizure medication.
Mhm.
And unfortunately, he was allergic.
God. This is like that's like your worst nightmare.
Yeah,
It is.
it was because by the time I got back there, they allowed me to get back there.
Mhm.
He is probably about maybe at this point 20 pounds heavier in just those few minutes because it's blowing him up. He has
Oh.
hives. And I said, something is wrong. I said, I don't believe it's the seizures. What did you guys give him? And then one of the nurses looked at me and said, "Oh man, wow." And they mentioned the drug. And I said, "Is he allergic?" And then everyone stopped and said, "Oh, there's a possibility he might be allergic." They
Mm.
kicked me out because now they're trying to get that out of his system.
Oh my
So it was
goodness.
another scary, um, even scarier than seeing him going through the seizures.
Yeah.
Oh,
Well, and I just want to point out, like props to you, Diane, on your advocacy here, because like, you know, and I think there's so many people who could benefit from hearing this as well. Like, if you live in an area like, like I'm in Chicago, you guys are in DC, where there are multiple hospitals to go to.
yes.
You know, taking that extra time to get to the right one. I know I've done that so many times because ambulances do the same thing here in Chicago. It's like they take you to the closest one.
Yeah.
And, or not the same thing, I shouldn't say, but whatever it is, they take you to me and I have begged them to take me to the right hospital. And they're like, "We just can't, sorry," you know? And so then I started taking Ubers when I needed to go to, the correct hospital.
Yeah.
And then also just you speaking up and saying, "This is," because I feel like sometimes we can, I don't know, like choke in those situations. Like, I don't know, I guess the doctors and nurses, they know what they're doing, but you were just like, "No,
Mhm.
something is wrong." That's
Yes.
just very incredible. And I just want to point that out to the audience just because like I know I'm learning from this, just sometimes just like speaking up. I think sometimes we're just like afraid to speak up when we're in, the presence of medical teams and stuff just because we assume they know better, but you know your husband better
Yeah.
than any of those nurses and doctors. So just props. Amazing.
You.
And I'm
Thank you.
so sorry, but it doesn't take I'm so sorry you had to go through that. It's
Yeah.
fucking
Yeah.
awful.
Thank
Yeah.
you.
I was his advocate. I had no choice. And we are college sweethearts. So we've been together for eons, almost 30 years.
Oh my gosh, congratulations.
Thank
I
you.
love that.
Yes.
Thank
Mm,
So we've had time to learn each other and to
yeah.
know when something's wrong. And that's
Mhm.
very important. You know, when you're growing old together, when you're in a relationship, to understand when something's wrong. Uh,
Yes.
and then for, for me being a female, and maybe I shouldn't say, and maybe it's not a gender role, maybe it's just a role for, it's just me, it's anyone it can happen to, but I'm sort of verbal in the sense that if I'm not feeling well, I would say I'm not feeling well.
Mhm.
Majority, and that's when I said gender, the majority of males, when they're not feeling well, what do they
Yeah.
do? Well, I'm okay.
We
You
tend to,
sure?
we get very
Yep.
introverted. We escape within
Yeah.
ourselves.
Yep.
So it's important for me, and especially now after this diagnosis, to understand when Charles is saying, "Oh, I'm doing fine," or "I'm feeling fine," but I can see the signs that he's not. So, and at first I used to think, well, he's in denial, but there are days where he's just not seeing it.
Mm.
He's just
Wow.
an autopilot.
You should talk to my fiance. He feels the same way. He tells me that too.
And there are many days that he's like, "I'm doing well. I'm doing fine.
Yeah.
What are you seeing?"
Yeah.
And I'm like, ah. And then, by the end of the night or that morning, a mini seizure will happen
Mhm.
because it's very important to understand, when he's not, or because he doesn't know. He has no idea
Mm.
Yeah.
the time.
Yeah. Yeah,
No time.
I think that's pretty common too, to just not sometimes just not be aware because it's kind of this new existence, and it's especially new for you, Charles, and for both of you, as this is I mean, it hasn't even been a year
Yeah.
since your diagnosis, which honestly, like, makes this conversation even more incredible because, like, I know myself included could not have the courage to talk about it this early on,
Yeah.
and just really appreciate that
Yeah.
you guys are doing this, and having this conversation. So we know so what happened where we left off with, the allergic reaction in the hospital.
Allergic reaction. He stayed in the
Yeah.
hospital for about
2 weeks.
2 weeks,
Mm,
and
God.
the EEG happened, right?
Okay.
The EEG that he was avoiding,
Yeah.
that
They
he
are the worst. I understand, Charles.
that he didn't think that he needed. He
No.
thought it was a one-off. Well, it happened. Thank goodness, because that saved him.
Yeah.
Then he was diagnosed with the
With the
adult
onset
onset of
of
epilepsy.
Okay. Yeah.
So then became our different. So we were happy, but the most important role that I played after was not to be satisfied with just that. I was
My
happy
God.
to hear finally we found out what was going on,
Mhm.
but it was more important to find out why. And many people in the medical industry, there's they're used to doing things a certain way. So sometimes there's no way that they can stop to find out why. But that's where you have to be an advocate.
Well, I
And
love that you said most important role is to not be satisfied with just the answer,
yeah,
but
yeah.
to dig deeper. Like, holy shit, that is beautiful. Wow.
I
Wow.
wanted to ensure that I wasn't being a nuisance. I mean, I wasn't like sending it back, right? I wasn't being a nuisance. I wasn't, just in everyone's face. But I wanted
Mhm.
to let everyone understand, if you're telling me that he's healthy and that his, vitals are great, and the most important thing is that he took care of himself.
Mhm. Mhm.
If they said, well, your husband was this and that, and he did this and that, it was a different story. But they could tell based on all the results, the tests, the blood results, they can tell. They were like, oh, when he said, not much of a drinker, can tell. Oh,
Mhm.
I've never smoked, or I've never done this, or I've never done that. I've never
Mhm.
abused, I eat well. They were able to see that.
Mhm.
And because of it, I sort of used that and pushed it in her face. Hey, this is not someone who doesn't have pride in himself. If it's hereditary, let us know. If it's something that just happened, let us know. But there is a reason. I'm sort of a cause and effect thinker. And that was what drove me to constantly not giving up and not
Mhm.
just saying, okay, um, you know, it is what it is. He has epilepsy.
And I talk to so many people who have this drive as well to know where it came from, especially people with adult onset,
Mhm.
which I am one of those as well.
Yeah.
And that's where I feel very oddly fortunate because mine was most likely from a brain surgery. I had to remove a brain tumor. So
Mhm.
the cause and effect there was pretty clear. It's like we don't know for sure, but probably kind of thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Are you still, is this a search or a quest you're still on?
It's a great question. We did finally get get to that conclusion, and and that was it. Real quick before I tell you what that was and what that end conclusion was.
Hmm.
Speaking of Chicago, I was a very good friend of mine who also was one of my ongoing guests on
Mhm.
my previous radio program, because I had been broadcasting for about 7 years on
Hmm.
WRD in Philly, and after this event, I retired from radio broadcasting because it's just too much, especially daily. That's a daily radio broadcast for 3 hours a day. 3 hours a day.
Yeah,
So,
and which is a long time.
it's a lot. It's a lot to take
Yeah,
in.
so can you I just sorry, I want to hear about your guest in Chicago, but before I just want to what is the why you said I retired from that after the second event of, and kind of learning you have epilepsy. Can you walk us through a little bit of that decision?
It's funny because for a few years, my wife had been telling me, "Hey, because that was a public affairs program, so I would cover public policy, politics, the whole gambit, and especially after the 2020 elections, which was very busy, extremely busy. My wife
Was
said,
it?
"You know what?" Yeah,
What
exactly,
what was there to talk about?
exactly. Especially I'm in a battleground state.
Yeah.
My wife was recommending strongly. She's like, "You know what? Maybe it's time to hang this up because this is a lot."
Mhm.
But it's also something I was very passionate about and
Mhm.
I love doing, and I was really good at. And so, but after this event, I realized that one, she was right. I should have listened to her earlier. But
We
two,
always are.
Can we just
we have
repeat
that on
that?
the record. We have it on the record now, right?
I will send you this clip so you can just replay it and
Replay it,
just
right,
hold it
right.
up on your
Like
phone.
over and over
Just
again.
on loop, right? Exactly. Just put it on loop, right? So one, she was right, and then
Mhm,
two,
mhm,
how was I going to be able to manage a daily 3 hour public affairs radio program that was really intensive, that
Mhm.
had also national reach? How was I going to be able to do that with this new diagnosis? This was something that kind of
mhm,
profession
mhm,
could actually worsen the condition.
mhm.
Mm.
And so I started to become afraid for my life in a really big way.
Yeah.
I felt like I love the radio show, but I felt like, continuing at that pace was an existential threat. And so,
Mm.
this is time. This is the time. So I had that final. I actually got back from the hospital, had that final show, went through the
Which
whole
is
3 hours.
beautiful. And
Thank you.
I'm
And
going to
no
put
one, no
it in
one knew
the
it was
if you
coming.
want to listen to that, I will put it in the episode description. And I highly recommend you do.
Thank
Yeah.
you, thank you. And none of the listeners or the viewers knew it was coming because I went through the whole 3 hours like everything was fine. Everybody was happy to have me back. It wasn't until the very end of the show where I told everyone, "Hey, listen, this is the final broadcast, and so this is what happened." And I thought that it was not only responsible, but that the audience also, they deserve that. And not only that, but people need to learn about that. Epilepsy
Mhm,
is not something we
Mhm.
hide.
mhm.
It's something that a lot of people are dealing with, and a lot of families are struggling with. So, and we need to do more research. We need to raise more awareness and more resources, and funding, and medical attention to it, right?
Yeah.
So I thought that
And
that was
that segment was with the producer. I'm gonna
the
mess up
general
the
manager of
Mhm.
WURD. So she has epilepsy. I found out,
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
and you
know,
did, and which is amazing because you didn't know that before, right?
I did not know that before. Exactly.
And it happens all the time where like all of a sudden you say I have epilepsy and that people are like, "Oh, me too," or "Oh, my brother," "Oh, my cousin." It's just like it's very and that I think that's partially why that episode or that segment rather is so
Right.
moving when
Thank
you
you.
hear two people with epilepsy talking to each other about a very real moment. And I really appreciate you, both of you, putting that out there.
So and it's funny how like the show, I also had, was able to establish some friendships out of that experience, the show. One of those
Wow.
friendships was with a doctor. He's actually in Chicago. He teaches at the University of Illinois. Chicago teaches medicine, but he's also
Mhm.
does emergency medicine. But he kept telling me after the experience, he said, man, he said, okay, so you have epilepsy. He's like, keep pressing them on what caused it. He's like, have you found out yet? So months had already gone by. He's like, have you found out yet? I'm like, no.
Mhm.
He's like, it's been my experience in years of medicine that there's always a cause. Like things don't just happen or appear out of the blue. So
Mhm.
he's like, that's just really strange. He's like, but it's not so strange because he's like, unfortunately, that's how my community works. And he's my professional community. So keep pressing them on that. And we eventually found out that the big trigger for it was has been sleep apnea.
Mhm.
It's been sleep apnea.
Oh, wow.
Really bad, uh, really bad form of sleep apnea.
Oh
So
my
now we've
goodness.
just recently started to get that treated, and
Yeah.
and so that's and we'll see where that heads next in terms of getting this under control and managing it better.
Mhm.
Mhm.
Wow, so you went on a deep dive looking for underlying cause, and sleep apnea, was this something you were unaware you were suffering from before, or were you like, my sleep was a little.
Yeah, sleeping was, I definitely had, she's been dealing with it for years. It snored really bad.
Yeah, Diane, what's your take on that?
And the sleep apnea was when they did the sleep study and everything. It's really
Yeah.
bad. Yeah,
So,
yeah.
Mm,
Oh, go ahead, baby.
I felt it was important to push for sleep study because I wasn't getting a cut and dry answer on what the cause was. So I went
mhm,
digging. And you know, uh, I did several different things. We started doing support group with the Epilepsy Foundation.
mm,
It was very important for us to let Charles see that there are other adults dealing with this, and to be
mm,
embedded in that type of community, the support, the knowledge, and just the plain, just joy of bringing back the fact that you're grateful to being alive. You're grateful. You may not be happy with your diagnosis, but you're alive and you're thriving
mhm,
in so many other aspects. And I wanted to, so I started going to and doing one or two. I did a few, I believe, on my own. And I said to him, hey, you really, this is for you. You really needs to start doing it. And then we started really embedding ourselves into anytime there was a support group and we can make it and it's all virtual. We were like, oh, there goes, let's sign up for it. um the best thing that I've done, right? It was
yep,
scary.
yeah,
I was hearing
I
some
get it.
really scary stories,
Mhm.
but I was doing it with the community. Prior to that, I was staying up at night listening to him snore. And
I know it sounds real simple and maybe even laughable on some levels,
yeah,
but
yeah,
it got real serious.
yeah,
It's that bad. Yeah.
listening to him snore. And I stayed up and I just was researching on the internet, which is very scary. Because you
Yes.
hear all different types of stories, right?
Dr. Google is terrifying
It
and
is.
sometimes helpful, and it's this weird balance, you
Yeah,
know?
yeah, it is.
Yeah.
And but it also helped me. It made me realize that we needed support. And if I was going to be an advocate for Charles and his health, that I needed, I needed help. With like-minded people, not just friends and family members. I
But
needed
people who
help
get it,
that people
people who
who,
understand.
yeah, yeah, and that's
Mhm.
what we did. And then I started looking at different things, and I said, you know what, the snoring, um, and I was just determined. I said it got so bad that you know earplugs, nothing. I wouldn't sleep at night because
Oh god.
you know, but he would stop breathing, and I would be there just to. And he said, well, maybe I could sleep in a different room. And I said, absolutely not.
Yeah, not if you stop breathing. I was
No,
gonna
it
yeah.
sounds like you're not breathing properly.
Yeah.
So why would I, separate from you? I said, you need me during, I said, if you don't need me during the day, you definitely need me at night during your sleeping period. So, That's what happened. We actually, went and I said, hey, I think we need to do a sleep study. His sleeping is really off, and I'm not sure if he's breathing right. And we have a young primary care physician for Charles who was like, you know what, he cares. It's like, okay, we can't find out. We're not at that point. We did not know the cause or the potential sleep apnea, but he was like, huh, let me see. Okay. And then he wrote the referral. We did the sleep study, and it took them maybe about 4 or 5 months to come back with the results. No one could find the results.
But they just got lost?
We just got lost.
Oh, dear sweet Moses.
Yeah.
Yeah. No,
I was like, what kind of study? I thought it was like maybe some integrative study where it's like they have
mhm,
to send it off
yeah,
to Europe. No, they just lost. Okay.
they just
Just
lost
lost
it.
it.
I'm so
But
sorry.
our doctor was determined, and he kept on pressing and pressing, and he's
Mhm.
like, okay, before we ask them to do another sleep study, let me see. And then he found out, and it, like, the amount of time he stopped breathing during the night,
Oh,
the fact that
Mhm.
he wasn't getting enough oxygen,
Yeah.
the fact that he had a busy schedule, he was doing all these heady things during the day prior to, him being diagnosed.
mm-hmm.
It, it just led to them believing that this could potentially be a cause.
Yeah.
And that's when we started on the journey that this
Wow.
this seems like it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and I mean, I'm obviously not a doctor. I don't know, but like the whole concept of like it started in your sleep.
Yeah.
That's the origin, you
Mhm.
know?
Sleep
Like,
is very important. Yeah. I mean, if it's one thing we've
Mm.
definitely learned
Yeah.
from this experience, or one of the big important things that people tend to take it for granted. But I would really stress to your audience how important sleep is.
Yes.
Rest, resting
yeah.
your body, and not just 3, 4 hours of sleep at a time. No, like now, sleep is extremely critical and important
Mhm.
to me. So,
Yeah.
like, I don't care. I'm going to get that full
Yeah.
8 hours of sleep,
Mhm.
Yeah. It's
and
like a non-starter once you have epilepsy
Yeah.
that's right.
because,
Yeah.
That's right.
like I used to kind of, I mean, yeah, I used to stay up late and write and do things. And like I always needed sleep. But like at 32, when I was diagnosed with epilepsy, I was like, well, now I really need it. This is
Mhm.
just a non-negotiable, I'm
Mhm.
the fun one in bed at like 8:30,
Sounds like me.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and the seizure meds make you tired as it is, so it's like,
yeah, yeah.
you might as well not fight it. But it's not easy though. We joke about it right now, but it's not an easy transition,
No,
Yeah.
it's not.
especially when you're used to living a very busy lifestyle.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Um, and so I guess like what does that look like for, you know, you guys as you Charles as, an individual, but also you two as a couple, like cuz this is a huge life transition and you're like, "No shit." You don't need to tell me, like, I know.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
but, like, I'm just so curious as to what that looks like, for someone, who thrives and does so well, public speaking and all of these engagements and, like, in the middle of your fellowship, and I got the fact that you have completed it is, like, beyond to
Mhm.
me. Like, I'm just like, "What? Like, how?" And then, just what this looks like, how it's changed, dynamics in your relationship,
At first, I'd like to also give props or just a big up to the Emerson Collective for being really patient with me through this
Mm.
process because I found out that I had epilepsy. I had this seizure in the middle of my fellowship and a rather busy fellowship at that. So they were very understanding, extremely patient, very, very helpful. And so that really that was very they were very supportive.
I
And that
love hearing that.
that means a whole lot to me.
Yeah.
So, absolutely. I just need to put that on the record that I appreciate them for doing that. And I'm going to tell them again at the end of the fellowship. So that's one. But definitely it's been traumatic. it's resulted in an overhauling of how I look at life, how I perceive life,
Mhm.
but also how I appreciate life, how I appreciate the most important person in my life, how I appreciate my family. Because it's not just Diane, my wife. We have 3 children, and so they're all grown. We have one, the youngest one's in college now. So, and I want to be around. I want to be around for a longer time to see everyone grow and evolve and be successful. And I want to make a contribution to the bigger, broader world and contribute to the common good so they
Mhm.
have a better world to live in, right?
Yeah.
So,
Hmm.
but in order for me to do that, it requires me to restructure my life or how I carry it out. And that's a good thing. So, like I just told you a few moments
Mhm.
ago, sleep.
Mhm.
Got to get that 8 hours of sleep so I can operate better, right?
Hmm.
Structure my schedule, restructure the way that I'm engaging my routine, how I am engaging work, right? That's
Yeah,
very important.
What you consume
What what
during your
the,
day.
what I consume during the day, the type of information I'm consuming, the
totally.
type of content I'm consuming during the day, what I'm reading, what I'm watching, what
Mhm.
I'm listening
What
to,
you're eating.
what I'm eating. That's all
Yeah.
very important. So
Mhm.
those are some very good changes in lifestyle that that I've now carried out that I feel have been a big plus. In
Yeah.
addition to changing the way that I engage my relationship and my partnership
Mhm.
with. I mean, we always had a partnership. We were always best friends, my wife and I. But now it's been so on so many levels. It's been so much more different and so much more fulfilling
Mhm.
since this has happened. It's kind of like it's hard to explain on so many levels, but it's just been
Yeah.
so magnificent the way that our relationship now works more in terms of how we are going through this journey together and also appreciating the world we live in together,
Mhm.
appreciating that.
Mm.
Mhm.
Yeah. I mean, perspective totally changes with epilepsy, right?
Mhm.
And I love how you're saying, like it's a restructuring. And it's kind of like all the things that we know we're supposed to do as humans, as every human is supposed to do, become like a little bit more vital
Right.
when you
Mhm.
have epilepsy, right? Like it's kind of like how you're saying, like even like from the media you take in to what you eat to, sleep, like these like basic things that we all know we're supposed to do, right? All of a sudden become like kind of like, nah, I have to if I want to literally live the best life tomorrow, you know, because all these things we have to do are for kind of like longevity, right? And it's like, well, it's better to eat healthy for, your heart down the road. And it's like, yeah, it's better to eat healthy right now
Yeah.
because otherwise will have a seizure in a few hours, or I have to sleep well right now because otherwise I'll have a seizure tomorrow. It's
Yeah.
kind of like our cause and effects are so much quicker now. And
Right.
that's what I hear you describing. And like, it's very cool that you appreciate it as well. Because I know when I was like less than a year in, I wasn't where you are. I I was like, fuck this noise. I hate this
Right.
shit. I can't do anything, like,
Yeah, I,
so
I get it too. I get it
Yeah.
because my life before then was extremely busy and frenetic and fast paced.
Mhm.
Some
mhm,
might even say, well, at least on the professional level, a bit chaotic,
Mhm.
right? Especially with a radio show, put a radio show in that and trying to run a business at
right?
the same time. That's crazy. So now I feel like I've reached a sort of, there's a calm to it
Mm,
all now throughout the day. Like it's still busy, and don't
yeah.
get me wrong, it's still fun too. People are thinking, "Oh, it sounds boring." No, it's not. It's actually really
Mm-mm,
fun because there's a stability to it all,
mhm.
a calm.
Structure
That
more.
that
You way more
structure.
structured.
There's a nirvana that I'm
Yeah.
feeling that I love. I like it, and I'm like, well, why
Mhm.
didn't I do this before? I should have been doing this before I even found out about that.
Yes.
It's cool, right?
Oh God, I relate so hard to that because I lived a little bit of a frenetic life before my
Mm.
first seizure too. And it was just like all of a sudden, like everything just shifted overnight.
Exactly.
Um, yeah. It's not that like, and maybe you can agree with this too. Like in the frenetic lifestyle, it wasn't that I wasn't having fun. I loved that life.
Mhm. Right.
But now I look back and I'm like, it probably just wasn't the healthiest. I love doing all of those things. Granted, I was not on a
Mhm.
radio show. I was
Yeah.
not on a 3-hour radio show. However, like, it was just, I love having my hand in, like, all these different buckets.
Mhm.
And then it was just like, well, maybe that wasn't the most fulfilling way to live life, you know?
Yeah.
And you also mentioned, how it changed, the dynamic of your partnership. And Diane, I know you had mentioned too, you wanted to talk about that as well. Like, how do you feel that things have shifted? Which is still, I almost feel like it's an unfair question because it hasn't even been a year.
Definitely time is definitely writing the book on how we deal with it.
Mm,
So we are evolving as people, individuals, but we're also evolving as a couple. And we're evolving with this diagnosis, right? And um, I think the more time goes by, is now we're learning how to deal with it um,
yeah.
successfully. You know, because at the beginning it was really really hard for us. At the beginning,
Mhm.
when Charles got out of the hospital, one a doctor told us one episode or one of his seizures was like running a 26-mile marathon.
Yeah.
It's what it feels like. I don't know. That's what I always felt
Yeah,
like
yeah,
after.
that's right, right after, right? So
Yeah,
think
and
about
like I was pushing a truck. I was like, I feel like I pushed a truck and ran for 26 miles simultaneously. I don't know, Charles, that was your experience, but
Oh,
I'm so
yes.
glad a doctor recognizes that because sometimes you have to say that to a doctor. They're like, "Really?" I'm like, "Yeah."
it is. Yeah.
Yeah.
And then he got out of the hospital, and I mean, after having five. So um, just everything that he used to do. Suddenly it was like, oh, am I taking the trash out now? Oh, am I doing this now? So we had a
We did not discuss this."
we had a relationship where for many years where we always try to rely on the person who was better at something to take lead, not to be responsible for it, but to take lead,
That
right?
is so
So
beautiful.
Charles is
Ro
better at, understanding you know, the ins and out, just civic literacy, like,
and how to take out the trash. He's just
how to
better.
take out the trash, right?
That's me.
And Charles was, good about that stuff. So,
Mhm,
when it was to like election time, I would ask him all these questions and I would, drop my own conclusion. But, I let him take the lead on, like, I really listened to what he had to say because he was, the expert,
mhm,
you know, and that's how our marriage, relationship, and partnership was for many years. And
mm,
suddenly it was just Diane.
Mm,
yeah.
And
mhm.
at first, you're like, man, you get your pep talk and you're like, oh, I'm going to do it because, of course, my husband is important to me and I need him to get better. And I'm doing it because I love him. And then you get angry.
Mhm,
Gosh, you know, I got to do everything. I'm trying to figure this out. And,
Mhm.
not necessarily angry with him, just
no.
angry with what you went through, the diagnosis. And then I sat down one day and I said, but who are you angry with?
Yeah.
Because you don't want that anger to spill over in your relationship. I'm like,
That's right.
but I'm angry with the world. I'm angry that we had to,
You had to
we
go
had to
through
go
that.
through this.
Yeah.
He lived a
Mhm,
healthy lifestyle. Like, why? And then
right.
I was like, oh wow, but this is not something that I do. I don't ask why. I pick up and I keep moving.
Mhm,
But it was my one moment of saying, you know what? I need to refresh. I need to take a look at it. And I need to count my blessings. At the end of the day, on those two um, occasions, those separate occasions, I could have lost my husband.
Yeah.
mhm.
So
Yeah.
okay, he doesn't have the strength that he had, you know, right when he came out. He's, he looks like a different person. He lost weight. He just, his
Mhm.
memory, oh gosh, um,
I
so
feel you, that
Charles
memory
has always
thing.
been a better driver than I am.
Well,
Maybe it's just me like liking to be in the passenger seat.
but
But
there was that period of, several months, well, 6 months, right?
Mhm.
Yeah, after I wasn't supposed to drive,
Yeah,
like based on state law.
actually 7.
Mhm.
They
That's
extended
right.
it.
They
Yeah.
extended it a little,
By a
and
month? That's so
that was
random.
that was on one level it's
Yeah.
difficult because I lost some independence there, but on another
Yeah.
level, that also was refreshing because because she had to step in and she had to drive everywhere and drive me everywhere. So just I mean, my love for her being that advocate and doing things like that became much strong. It was already strong, but it became much stronger and more
Mhm.
resolute because of that. I mean, I have to say that Diane's always been this remarkable woman. I mean, since the days we met, right? The days we met in college. So it was
Mhm.
always this remarkable, just beautiful woman, and beautiful woman, a beautiful girlfriend, to fiance, to then wife, beautiful lover, and then the remarkable woman for raising, three girls,
Mhm.
watching that, and then remarkable for then helping me create and start and grow this business, which has been going on for about a decade now. But she has now, like, because of this experience, she's transitioned into, or for me, the way I look at it, she has now transitioned into my Athena. She's like
Mm.
this goddess of mythical proportions now for what she's handling, for what she's doing, for how she has risen to the occasion. And it's like I love her so much for how she's doing that, how
I'll
she stepped
remind
into
you
that
when you
role.
say
But yeah, yeah,
I'll definitely replay this,
yeah, how she stepped into that role, how she stepped into that role so swiftly.
Mhm.
Like it was just so amazing. Once I came out of that blackout, and even in the hospital, like I woke up that second seizure, the really big one where we found out I had epilepsy, and I'm like, oh no, not again. But immediately after I came out of the blackness, out of the darkness, I looked around and she's right there. She's right there
Mhm.
at the bedside in the ER. And she's like, I'm here. She's like, I'm here. And I'm like, you know what? She was everywhere. She did not miss or skip a beat.
Mhm.
So, and I wish that for everyone. I wish a Diane for everyone who's going through epilepsy, through something as traumatic, as something as real, and something as really as destructive as this. I wish
Mhm.
everyone can get has or had a Diane. Like
Mhm.
I'm really lucky. I'm very fortunate, and I realize that. I remember that every day. I have to remind myself of that every day. I'm very fortunate because a lot of people don't have that. Most people I suspect. I haven't done the data on this, but most people I suspect who are
I
going through
didn't.
this don't
Mm-mm.
have
A
this.
lot of people are single going through this.
Yeah.
It's terrible, and
It's not no, I wish I had Diane. I'm not sorry, no.
But Landis, it's not
she's the
easy.
model. She's the model for that.
But it's not
Yes.
easy. It's not easy being a Diane because
Yeah.
then, I was taking up so much, right? That
Mm.
my blood pressure spiked.
Oh, no.
Yeah.
So then I had, to watch it.
Mhm.
And guess what I did?
Yeah.
I had to start saying, okay, Charles, I think you're ready to take responsibility for your health now.
Yeah.
So certain things I had to shift
Mm.
back to him. Like I was like, okay, it's
What?
time for you to take your pills, time for you to take your medication, time for you to
Sure.
do this, time for you to do that. Because, and then I said, oh no, you have to live whether or not I'm around. So, and I want to live. If I
Yeah.
continue, to and I'm always going to be his advocate, right? I'm always
Yeah.
going to be there. I'm always going to be right behind him, right? As long as I'm here. But it was very important for me to also say, okay, now we have to shift. So we went through a lot of different stages, and it
Yeah.
hasn't even been a year.
Right. And, like, that's the thing is, like, there's more to come.
There's more
There's
to
more
come.
there's more stages to come because there always is with epilepsy, which is the most frustrating thing I
Hmm.
think about it. And what I really appreciate about both of you is how you both have acknowledged Charles, while you say like, this is traumatic and this is, awful, like, but I'm still grateful for the perspective that it's given me for the life changes I've had. And, and same with you, Diane, you're like acknowledging the anger, and the anger it causes, which it's so weird to be angry at epilepsy. It's just the weirdest because you just feel like you said, like, who am I angry at? A
Yeah.
thing? A thing in the brain? Like, it's just so bizarre. But then you also acknowledge like how it's made you uh appreciate your husband being here. And that leads me to saying how much I love how both of you acknowledge all the sides, not just both sides, because there's not just two, there's a gazillion sides, and that delicate dance that you were doing, Diane, to like, be like, okay, I was the one, telling you this, but now, my health is kind of, suffering. So I need to step back and you need to go. Like, I can't even imagine what that feels like for both of you, just that like, because it's like almost like walking on eggshells with your health, and just trying to figure out like how do we recalibrate again.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's what you guys are doing is so amazing. And I would like to know I mean, and again, this question almost feels unfair, but like if you had any advice for couples that were just starting this out, who were you last March or you last November, what advice would you give them?
I would say honesty. Honesty
Yeah.
is key. Honesty in just everyday living, honesty
Mhm.
in who you are, honesty in, if you don't know how you're feeling, I don't know how I'm feeling today, but can you keep track of me because I don't know how I'm feeling today?
Mm,
Honesty and, what's going on, like for us, because, we have a partnership, you know, business,
mhm.
who are, I needed to know who all of our clients, but thank goodness that we shared that, you know.
Yeah.
Um, there's just a sense of honesty on every level. And I know a lot of married couples are like, oh, do I have to tell my person? I mean, the person who I'm married to doesn't have to know everything about me, right?
Sure.
But you have to prepare that at any time something can happen like this. And it's the honesty that kept us moving.
Yeah.
Mm,
You
that's
know,
beautiful.
Agree with that.
yeah,
Yeah.
there were many days that I had to tell Charles, I'm like, listen, I don't know how I'm feeling, about this, but I can tell you we're going to continue.
Mhm.
We're going to try to figure out, you know,
Mhm.
and I can tell you that I'm not happy, but I'm here.
Mhm.
Oh,
You
I'm
know,
not happy, but I'm here.
yeah,
I love that. I'm stealing that
yeah.
because
I'm
that
not
is
happy with it.
beautiful.
I wasn't happy with what was going on, and we're not happy with,
Yeah.
with not know at one point not knowing what he was going through.
Yep.
I'm not happy to, that, suddenly that, everything that, just I just had to jump in. But guess what? I did it because I'm here. I'm your wife. I'm her. I'm it for you. I hope, was
I think
telling them,
I think that's inaccurate. Yeah.
you know.
Based off this, I feel like that's accurate. Yeah.
Yeah. So it was, I'm just here. And I'm willing to go through it, right? I'm
Mm,
willing to go through it. Um,
yeah.
it's, I think that's the best advice that I could give is the honesty. Anything
Yeah.
on your end? I mean, what do you?
It is absolutely crucial to keep checking in with one another, right?
Mm,
To keep telling the other what's
mm,
going on uh,
yep.
with with their lives, and also creating that structure and that routine together. That's also really significant. You have to make sure that
Mhm.
you're doing that. Also, continuing that journey of learning more about the condition, doing that together. Like
Mm,
the
Yeah.
research and the learning is absolutely significant and important,
I
right?
love
And so
that.
learning as much, absorbing, consuming as much as you can about epilepsy,
Mhm.
doing those support groups like we did the support groups, did that together. That's
Yeah.
not like an individual,
Mhm.
a sort of individual thing that you should just do alone. So you should start getting used to doing those things together because, especially as your partner, as your wife or your husband, you want them as your continuous advocate, and in order for them to be an effective advocate, they have to be on the same page. So everyone has to be
Mhm.
on the same page
Yeah.
in order for
Mhm.
this to work, in order for that relationship to work.
Mhm.
Yes.
And just don't be afraid of that.
Yeah. Don't
Right,
be
right.
afraid.
Don't
That's
don't be
another one.
afraid. Yeah, have no
Yeah.
fear.
Yeah.
Yeah, because when you have each other, you're not alone. So there's nothing to be afraid of.
I really appreciate you guys being here. Before we end, I have like 4 questions for you that are not related to anything we just talked about. Okay. Number 1. What is your favorite, and this is individual, this is not like you have to answer as a couple.
Okay.
Favorite types of books to read?
Favorite types of book. Um, I don't know if I have a favorite genre. I like
Okay.
a little bit
That's
of
fair.
everything.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's
That's
like with
fair.
music. It's like me music. I like a little bit of everything. If it's well
Right?
written, then I can read it.
Yeah.
Yeah. I know when someone says, "What's your favorite type of music?" I'm like, I don't know how to answer that question. So I totally get it. Yeah.
So I
Um,
What
oh,
else?
go ahead. Sorry, try. I'm sorry. I thought Diane was answering for the group.
no,
My
no,
bad.
that's okay. I love 3 types of books that I love reading. Love reading history,
Mhm,
Mm,
love reading about politics, public policy,
mhm.
and I'm a big consumer of great science fiction novels. I
Yep.
love science
Yes.
fiction.
oh, cool. Okay. And those are like 3 genres that I've never delved into. Well, history. I love history, but yeah, maybe one time you could tell me a good rec because it's like I always feel bad when I'm not into all genres. You
Yeah,
know, I'm
Yeah.
like,
yeah.
like I feel like Anyway, number 2. Um, what's your favorite show or one that you're watching right now that you're really into?
Mm. Maybe you go. You're a big.
My favorite show
Mhm.
I'm watching right now. I love this show. Right, Slow Horses.
I've heard so many good things about that. Okay, I need to
Fantastic.
check it out.
So it has to be my favorite too because he watches it and I want to be with him, so I want to, you know,
I know, right? So
I
you
don't
let
want to
them
I don't
choose.
want to miss out.
Yeah.
So, so
Okay.
you know.
I get
Between
I
it's
get that.
between Slow Horses and it's all on Apple TV. Slow Horses and Ted Lasso. Ted Lasso is
Oh,
fantastic.
Mhm.
mm, yes, yes, hardcore Ted Lasso. I think I've rewatched it like 14 times because it's just serotonin through the TV. It's just it makes me feel happy. Number 3, what and we kind of covered this, but what does it mean to be a partner?
um, I see. So it's like every time I think about that, I just see a scale,
Go on.
right? So being a partner means that when I'm not enough, that you can hopefully level me off and bring me. And that has always been the way we try to implement, partnership in our relationship. So
That's very beautiful.
I can't beat that.
No, you can't. No, don't try.
I'm
Nope.
gonna go with that
Yeah,
definition
good call. Me
because
too.
it definitely is. I feel the exact same
Yeah, I'm stealing that one. I'm stealing like a gazillion of Diane's phrases from
way.
this conversation.
That happens with me all the time. Every day.
I believe it. And number 4, what is one thing that you do in your self-care routine?
I meditate, get up in the morning,
Mm, me
and
too. Yeah.
I just need, you know, I need to meditate, and then right after my meditation, gratitude.
Mm,
When people used to say that all the time to me, "Oh, I'm grateful for this, and you need to, live your life, being grateful." And now it gotten to the point where I actually understand exactly what they're saying.
mm,
So life's, it's not perfect. will never be. There are hardships, but yet I am grateful and filled with gratitude.
Oh, that's beautiful. Again,
You
about
know,
you, Charles.
in terms of a daily wellness routine, I'm a big believer in the push-up. I'm doing like
Oh,
daily. I get used to. I'll get up in the morning and throughout the day. It was actually really devastating to me after the big second epilepsy event where I found out I had epilepsy,
mm,
and I couldn't do that for a while.
mm,
Couldn't even do like two push-ups because
Mhm.
I had lost all my strength.
yeah.
So I'm a big believer in that. So I do push-ups like all throughout the day. Just-
That's so smart though. Like, that's something that I'm like, I'm gonna do that, and then I just forget.
Yeah.
Like, I just forget. But I love that. I love that, just like, because it is just kind of taking a break from your day.
Yep.
It's just like, and in a way that works for you. And I love that. I think that's very cool.
Mm.
Um, and very inspiring. And maybe one day I'll do it. We'll see. Well, Charles and Diane, thank you so much for being here. Thank you for sharing. I am so appreciative of this conversation and you guys, and just wishing you nothing but the best.
Thank you. We're filled with
Thank you,
gratitude
Landis.
for you
Yeah.
and giving us a chance to tell our story, and a platform. I think it's very important. What you're doing is like phenomenal.
Yeah.
And please understand that as much as we're grateful for each other, we're grateful for, you and, just thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Mm,
Thank you
This
for
is
thank
being
you.
such a great host.
Yeah, Landis,
Oh,
this is
that means the world. Thank you.
necessary work. Landis. It
Yeah.
really is. Like
Yeah.
keep it up.
Oh,
Yeah.
And
thanks,
thank you for
guys.
sharing your story too.
Yes.
Thank you.
Yeah.